Welcome to this edition of Here's the Thing for September 17th, 2014. DPR the man, that's who I am. Who are you? Send me a message. Let me know. Well, last week I indicated, both in the preview and the show, that I would be talking about certain items during the season. I left a few out and tried to include as much as I could and come up with something new every day. And one of the subjects I've been concerned about, obviously along with many other people, is ISIS. I spent much of the summer listening to stories about ISIS, so I took it upon myself to Google, what is ISIS? As it turns out, ISIS is a group of Muslims who believe in establishing a global caliphate. That is to say, the entire world is to be governed by them and believe in their form of God. What's new? What extremist group in any religion doesn't think that? Is that a revelation? Is that something that we didn't figure out? I mean, I could have figured that out without Googling what is ISIS. But to move on. The politics in the Middle East are very confusing. We really don't know who our friends are and who our enemies are. Whenever we fund someone or give someone arms or militarily advise someone, we really don't know where the money's going, where the arms are ending up, or where the advice is being taken. There are so many factions in the Muslim world, all of whom consider themselves to be the only true believers, that we may find ourselves helping our enemies or helping our friends to help our enemies or helping our enemies to help our friends. But let's get back to the point. Came upon an article in Newsweek. It turned out to be one of my epiphanies. Someone get the camera back in line here. Hello. Okay. I know where I am. Anyway. The premise of the article was a list of 10 enemies of ISIS that will cause them to fail. Now, everyone in the United States would like to think that ISIS is going to fail, and all the drive-by media is talking about how ISIS is going to fail, and all the politicians are talking about how ISIS is going to fail, because we really want to believe that ISIS is going to fail. And if this camera doesn't stop doing this, I'm going to have to uncheck a box. Thank you. The number one enemy, of course, is the United States. The other 9 consist of virtually every other sect of the Muslim religion. At this point, I have to sidetrack a bit, and as I continue, hopefully you'll see why. One of the main objectives of Osama bin Laden was to draw the United States into a war. By committing the atrocity of 9/11, he did so. His belief was that his people could defeat us the way they defeated the Soviet Union back in the 80s. That didn't happen. But he did succeed in drawing us into a, shall we say, drain on our economy. Fact of the matter is, we almost had him, Tora Bora. Why do I keep going into a corner? There. But, because President Bush decided to go into Iraq, Tora Bora became secondary. And the necessary people to go in and take out bin Laden at the time. Not to say that they would have or wouldn't have. We really don't know, and we never will. But we had a better chance, and it was taken away because the forces were diverted into Iraq. And that gave Osama another 10 years or so to survive. Okay, well, going back to history, we did provide aid to Osama bin Laden back in the 80s, late 70s perhaps, early 80s, mid 80s, when he was fighting the Soviet Union in Afghanistan, and what was to become the Taliban defeated the Soviet Union, destroyed their economy, and we helped do it. And what did Osama do in return? We got 9/11 in return for that. So you ask yourself a question, do we ever learn from our history? Don't we realize that any sect we decide to back will eventually be our enemy? Because any sect we decide to back believes that they're the only ones that should have rule over everyone's belief in God. So are we going to allow ISIS to draw us into another war? We all know that just recently President Barack Hussein Obama made a decision to allow airstrikes against ISIS. He's also allowing military advisors in Iran, shades of Vietnam. General Colin Powell was the one who said that, the military lost a lot of credibility after Vietnam. Now they've regained it. They've regained their skills, they've regained their training, they've regained their morale, and they don't want to repeat of Vietnam. But the politicians don't seem to care. Obama is calling on our allies to contribute to the fight. Our allies have already learned from our mistakes. They're not going to get involved in something that will tank their economy. Basically fighting a war they can't win. What we have is a religious war. How's that for overstating the obvious? Every single faction of the Muslim religion seems to believe that theirs is the only true way to worship Muhammad and Allah. The problem is they haven't got past wanting to kill one another to prove their point. Now here in the United States of America, we are guaranteed by our Constitution thus far to have freedom of religion. So every denomination that exists in this country may believe that they're the only true believers, and though we do have extremists here, such as Aryan Brotherhood, skinheads, white supremacists, Black Panthers, and perhaps even jihadists, because there's nothing in the government of this country that keeps them from expressing their opinion thus far, or celebrating their services, if you will, we pretty well have it under control. We have our moments, but it's more civil disobedience than terrorism for the most part. As I just mentioned, there are those out there who would like to propagate a war between the races or between religions, but we the people have more important things to do. The point of all this is that the average American doesn't understand the culture of the Middle East. In World War II, we considered the Japanese to be barbaric in the way they conducted the war. The Japanese were only following their religion and their culture. To them, we were the barbarians. The bottom line, of course, is that neither side was right, but we won. Therefore, by winning, we were able to dictate who the barbarians were. That being said, I propose that we allow all of the factions in the Middle East to do everything they can to destroy one another. Okay, a moment while we feel the shockwave going through the listening public. How dare I propose such a violation of human rights? How dare I propose murdering all those people? Well, you know what? They don't care about human rights. Isn't it rather obvious? They don't care about murdering innocent people. Only when we do it. Only when one of our drones accidentally kills someone that it wasn't meant to kill. We can go on and on about that. And I'm sure everyone will. And I'm sure everyone maybe thinks, oh, this guy's really a jerk, you know. But it doesn't matter to them who they kill in order to further their cause. So let them do it. Stay out of it. Don't send in the drones. Don't send boots on the ground. Don't send airstrikes. That way, we can't be accused of killing innocents. We can't be accused of stooping to their level. I don't approve of any of it. And if there were any way for it to go away, I would be more than happy to do what I could to bring that about. But we have to face an ugly reality. These groups of people believe that what they're doing is right. Their cultural and religious history tells them that what they're doing is right. There is nothing that our culture or religion can do to prove otherwise. If we go over there on yet another crusade with a capital C, we may momentarily conquer some small piece of property, but in the long run, we will accomplish nothing. If we are to follow our beliefs, then what we should do is live and let live. Accept the Muslims for who they are and allow them to learn to do what they believe they should do. We're not going to do that. We already know we're not going to do that. You know why? Let's ask Captain Obvious. The answer is oil. None of the countries who depend upon the Middle East for their oil supply can afford to have too much chaos. They're obviously afraid that if extremists grab control of the oil, they'll hold up the entire world for that oil. Another obvious point is that it's already being done. The world has been held up for oil since the 1970s when all of the oil-producing countries in the Middle East decided to band together to control the price. Regardless of what the rabble may do in the Middle East, the royalty still runs the show. Their money is being used to fund much of what's happening. Which is why, no matter what we do, we're helping our enemies. We say we're helping our friends. In helping our friends, we're helping our enemies. The oil barons in particular, those in the Saudi government, are perfectly capable of making or breaking the economy of any movement they choose to effect. If you really think about it, it pays the Saudi government to keep chaos in the Middle East. After all, it can give them an excuse at any time to raise or lower the price of oil. I've said this a million times, and you've probably heard it a million times before. Follow the money. In conclusion, I can point this out based on what I've seen. None of the sects of the Muslim religion are going to win. None of them are going to lose. They're just going to fight ad nauseum while those who run the economy profit. Little sidebar here. Do you see why I'm saying that I'm starting to believe in some of the conspiracy theories? Because total warfare brings out the risk of total destruction. The powers that be realize that the only way to fight one another is economically. The Japanese figured that out after World War II. The Chinese have figured that out. The Russians are figuring that out. And for some unknown reason, our government is operating in a blind fog, at least according to what they're telling us. Don't kid yourself. The whole situation is about economics. No matter what our government tells us, there's only one reason for being involved in the Middle East. And that's to keep our fingers in the pie. That, in turn, foments hatred against the West, which leads to more fighting, which leads to us getting involved. You see where this has been going and where it's going to continue to go? And the wheel goes round and round. Rush Limbaugh made a point not long ago, and I thought it was a very good one, and I'll add it to this. Wasn't it Barack Obama who campaigned on the mistake that George Bush made by going into Iraq and Afghanistan, and how Barack Hussein Obama was going to end all that? And isn't it Barack Obama now, in order to save his presidency, these comments were made by the drive-bys, in order to save his presidency and his legacy in history, he has to take military action against ISIS. The irony of it all. Well, I just thought it would be appropriate at this point to bring up another interesting subject that popped up recently. The release case of naked photos of celebrities on the internet. Now, how does that follow into a lot of what I talked about in the past? Well, I'll tell you. It's very simple. Very simple indeed. What we have here is a case of, excuse me a moment, a case of people who got all upset because information about them got loose that they didn't want out there. And right away, all the blame is going on hackers, and it's their fault that it happened, and so on and so forth. Well, let's once again, let's address Captain Obvious. What would he say? If you didn't want the pictures out there, you shouldn't have put them up there. Okay, the cloud. The cloud. Oh, how do I start? Well, I'll tell you. Here's what it's about. Right now I'm using a computer, two actually. And those computers have firewalls, antivirus, anti-spyware programs, and so on and so on and so on, which are only as effective as being able to keep up with what's already been done. There's a new virus as I speak. It won't be covered for a while, but that's all about hacking, cracking, phishing, and all those other ways that people can get your personal information. Anytime you go on the internet for anything that asks any personal information about you, guess what? There's a 99 and 44 100% chance it's going to end up somewhere else. You're going to get junk phone calls, junk emails, junk mail, junk advertisements, you name it, because you were interested in something, or you bought something, or God forbid you took out an internet payday loan. That being said, you know, we listen to commercials every day about protecting our identity, protecting our information, protecting the contents of our computer, backing them up, and so on and so forth. And we back them up on the cloud, and we back them up everywhere. Our iPads, our iPods, our iPhones, our Android devices. They go up into the cloud. And every cloud provider says theirs is secure. But for every lock, there's a key. Law enforcement has programs that can get to your information under proper circumstances, presumably. But the moment that program is out there, somebody's going to have it that shouldn't. And that's what happened. Somebody got a hold of it that shouldn't have it. And they were able to open the cloud. They need passwords. They need usernames. Generally speaking, people are pretty loose about that stuff. They're not careful. And in many cases, hackers are good enough to get your password and your username without a whole lot of trouble. Even I can go on the internet and find out things about you that you don't want me to know. I may have to spend a few dollars, and I don't do it because I really have no interest in doing so. However, it can be done. It can be done. If I put my mind to it, I can find out a lot about a lot of people. And I'm sure people can find out a lot about me. So it goes into this whole idea that I've talked about in the past about everyone being connected all the time. Carrying their smartphone and their iPod and their iPad and their laptop and their notebook and their netbook and their this and that out there. Always connected. Always. Everything you do has to be out there because you hope that somebody sees it. You hope that somebody replies to it. Comment was made on one of the radio shows not long ago about the fact, you know, someone gets on Facebook and makes a comment about politics and 5 people agree with him. Oh, look, I'm famous. 5 people agree with me. I must be right. We all need those social strokes. We all need the knowledge that somebody out there recognizes, why am I doing this? For the fun of it, basically. Largely for my own entertainment. But it would be nice if someone would reply and get back to me and tell me I'm right or I'm wrong, or give me an opinion to work on or something else to talk about, that would be great. That would make me momentarily famous in the eyes of at least one person in the universe. And that would be cool. I don't care who sees this. I don't care who listens to this. Can't hurt me, not in this country, not presently at least. But I'm very, very careful about keeping my computer clean. Dumping out tracking cookies and junk. Spam filtering my email. Keeping my virus program up to date, my anti-spyware program up to date, my firewall up to date, using those programs. And I don't pay for any of them. They're all free. I could get better versions if I wanted to. So far I haven't seen the necessity. But people, get smart. Get smart. Don't let all that stuff pile up in there. Every time you go on the internet, somebody's watching where you're going, what you're doing there. It's all in your computer, unless you clean it out. So, what does that all mean as far as this naked pictures of celebrities getting out? Okay, naked pictures of celebrities get out all the time. People take snapshots of movies where they appear naked, and they call that a naked picture of a celebrity. That doesn't seem to bother the celebrity because they're getting paid a lot of money to do it. When you put your information out there, I don't care who you are. If you don't want someone to know it, don't show it. Does that work? If you don't want someone to know who you are, where you are, or how you got there, don't tell them. Back in the day when there was no internet, no devices, no constant hookup, and we were perfectly happy to have a private life. What happened to that? You think for 1 minute that there aren't things that go on in this home, in my life, that you don't know about? Of course there are. It's going to stay that way. There's no need to bring it out in this particular venue here. If it's applicable, I'll mention it. If it's not, I won't. I have a wife and son to protect. Okay, I have a lifestyle to maintain. And I have all the responsibilities that go with that. And one of those responsibilities is to mind my own business. To help when I'm needed, to stay away when I'm told. I don't need to be connected to the universe. I haven't been on Facebook for ages. Facebook's for the lonely. Not entirely, but mainly. Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter. I'll get to Twitter in a little while, but my point here is simple. All right, once again, do you have to pay someone to protect yourself? You could. You know, you're so busy being connected, you haven't got the time to do it yourself. Another irony. You make the time. You make the time. With freedom comes responsibility. You've got the freedom to put anything you want out there, but you've got the responsibility to yourself and to your family and to your loved ones to have some kind of control, to have some kind of way of making sure that no one's hurt in as much as you can. It's not overwhelming. It's not that difficult. People my age, a lot of them are afraid of technology. People older than me are afraid of technology. It's too difficult. It's too complicated. It's too hard. No, it isn't. It's as simple as can be. I wouldn't be doing this if it weren't simple. I wouldn't have taken a couple of viruses out of our computer at one time or another myself if it weren't that simple. I'm not saying it was easy, but it was simple. So my point is, okay, based on what I've talked about in the past of being too connected, too involved, too much information, scale down. you don't need it. You're so busy living everybody else's life and getting your life into theirs that you haven't got a life anymore. It's all dependent upon social media. It's all dependent upon being connected everywhere you go. Look, this is my cell phone. Okay? It's a flip open. When I was visiting with my friends from Cleveland State, one of them said to me when I opened it to take a picture, Denny, what is that? He said, it's a phone. That's all it is. That's all I need. It's nice to have that convenience. Okay? It's nice to have that convenience. You can get things done a little bit quicker at times by having it than by not having it. I'll give it that. All right? But I don't need to be hooked up to the internet. I don't need a bunch of apps. I don't need to be able to play games everywhere I'm at. I don't need to be able to connect to Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, or any of those other, Vimeo, Vine, YouTube, Google+. Okay, I don't need to be able to get there everywhere I go. I don't need to be able to get there everywhere I go. I've done fine without it. And I think I'm just as current, if you will, as anyone out there when I choose to be. But it's my choice. It's not something that I foist upon myself every day. With that being said, we'll move on to the next subject. To Ferguson, Missouri, which is a subject last week that I told you I would talk about as time went on this season. It wasn't long ago that my wife tweeted her opinion regarding the shooting of the black male by the so presumably unarmed black male by the white policeman in Ferguson that led to all the trouble that they're having there. She pointed out that recently at that time a white male had been shot by a black policeman under the same general circumstances somewhere else in the country, and that too was wrong. And in reply, a lady tweeted her back, well, I'm sorry for the family of that man, but this happens all too often in the black community. Let's stop right there. Whoever that lady was is a blithering idiot. There's just no other way to put it. A blithering, blind, left-handed, left-wing idiot. Okay? If any unarmed person is shot by any policeman in any community, it's wrong. It doesn't matter what race they are. It just amazes me. It amazes me how things have turned around in this country. There was a time when black people were looked at as less than citizens. That time is gone. It's over. It's been over for a long time. The only reason the civil rights activists are still active, for the most part, is because they continue to foment arguments between the races. They bring about conflict. They amplify events in order to stay in business. Follow the money, the power, the ability to acquire a government position. It isn't about helping the common people. The common people are pawns. The people who are in the streets in Ferguson, or have been in the streets in Ferguson, the police in Ferguson, the whole thing is nothing but a move in a chess game by power brokers, politicians, and activists who live for conflict to gain power and gain credibility and gain funding and feather their own beds. Wake up. No shooting is a good shooting. But the only ones that get attention is when a white person shoots a black one. What's wrong with that picture? Black people shouldn't be shot. White people shouldn't be shot. Yellow people and red people and brown people shouldn't be shot. It isn't about that. It isn't about that at all. With that, we move on. Well, we can all breathe the universal sigh of relief as we near the end of this edition of Here's the Thing for September 17, 2014. DPR, the man, that's who I am. And I have to tell you how to get hold of me. You can email us at hdt2010roadrunner.com. You can address us through heresdathing.com Facebook page. You can use the search term Here's the Thing and find us on YouTube and Google+. You can go to the website and get any of these options at your disposal along with the audio version of the program if you haven't got time to watch and see my shining countenance in your presence. The most important thing is that you give us the feedback. The most important thing is that you tell us your ideas, tell us if we're right, tell us if we're wrong, tell us what you're thinking, and we'll tell you why you're thinking. Remember, you may not always be right, but you're never wrong on Here's the Thing. Well, now I'm hearing the conclusion of the generally heaved sigh of relief throughout the country and the universe because we've reached the end of this edition of Here's the Thing. Stoppicky Productions, along with WELBDBJ Radio, has proudly brought you this edition for September 17th, 2014. And DPR, the man, that's who I am, wishing you a good day, a good week, a good month, a good year, a good decade, a good century, a good lifetime. Come back and see us again next week for Here's the Thing. And remember, you may actually be a part of it.